Firegirl Chapter 4. But that wasn't all. I had lots of rescues. Masked marauders. I always liked the word marauders, which I got from one of Jeff's comics. And of course, they had to have masks on. Really creepy masks with horns. Would try to steal Courtney for some reason involving lots of money. But there I was, battling my way past them, breaking the chains on her wrists and carrying her up through some kind of tunnel of falling blades, which turned out to be not far from the school when we surfaced. We dived right into my fat red cobra and out of the parking lot, our pockets dripping with gold and jewels, enough for us to live on for the rest of our lives. Or I would be at recess, flapping cool air into my blazer and talking with the guys about the science quiz, and then I'd suddenly look up. I was the only one who knew to do this at just that moment. To see Courtney plummeting through the air, the jet of her uncle was piling on fire and crashing. She bailed out, and I would say, "Stupid chute, don't open!" Tossing my blazer aside, I would somehow leap up from the roof of the gym. I was on top of the gym now, and jump sort of sideways across the schoolyard and catch her just as she fell. We would tumble slowly and softly to the ground together on the bright green grass of a golf course that was across the street, and her hair would fly across our faces as we rolled and rolled down to Little Green Hill. Then it would get a little hazy, but suddenly everyone was crowding around us. Joey and Rich and Darlene and Mrs. Tracy and Samantha Embriano. And there would come a moment in front of everyone when Courtney would thank me. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." She would always be with me after that. It could happen. A short snapping sound of loose papers being stacked on a desk made me lift my head. Mrs. Tracy called on Joey Sisman to hand back some graded papers. He started in the back corner, putting a couple on Courtney's desk. She nodded and then leaned forward, moving her right hand between her skirt and the desk seat. She looked up, maybe at the clock, and I turned away. Of course, Courtney Ziske never actually noticed me. She was popular, and she had her own big bunch of friends who had included me. Why would it include me? I was just a sweaty fat kid with baggy pants, and she was Courtney Ziske. But being unknown was actually good. Here's where not getting out there was a good thing. Not being noticed was perfect for a superhero, and I sort of was a superhero in all the adventures I had thought of with her in them. I was pretty fearless. I had powers, even though I have to say that there was a pretty strange thing about every rescue story I thought of. The powers I had were not the usual superhero powers. They were small, little powers, not very remarkable. You could say that they were even kind of dumb. In my battle against the Marauders, for instance, I didn't have any amazing strength or super speed. When it came to the big moment to rescue Courtney, I found that what I could do was spin really fast. So fast I was like a blur, and I could do it on one foot. If spinning fast was almost worthless in most situations, it happened to be the perfect thing against Marauders. They could do nothing against my spinning around. They fell away from me, dropping their weapons, which clanked to the floor. Their mouths, I could see their mouths from behind their masks, were wide open and yelling. Their eyes were full of fear. Finally, I stopped spinning long enough to pull Courtney away to freedom. We lived a happy life after that. One foot spinning was not all I could do, though. Sometimes a hand made of glue was the one thing I needed to stop the bad men. Once I used a detachable ear to trick them, a very loud finger snap, invisible elbows, an earth-shaking hum, legs of snow, and the ability to roll uphill were just some of the many powers that helped me in my Courtney stories. Each time before I hopped into my famous roaring red cobra and tore off into the night with her, I could use one of these abilities and leave all the powerful evildoers falling down in defeat. Not that these rescues were ever easy. Some of them, they were tough. A lot of time, there would be a point when I'd have to choose between two really horrible things to save Courtney. It was either the pit of hissing snakes or the rushing bunch of sweaty men with big iron clubs, the stairway of flashing sabers, or the man-eating snake-infested pool that stank like garbage. Faced with these kinds of dangers, there came a moment when everything stopped, and in an instant of complete stillness fell over me, and over everything around me. I could there, sizing up my choice, figure out what I was going to do. It was like I was standing in the middle of a flimsy little rope bridge. On one side, the ropes were on fire, burning away from the rocks that held them. On the other was a troop of sword-waving bandits with painted faces charging at me. At this moment in the soundtrack, my adventures were always accompanied by booming horns and thundering drums. Everything would go silent except for a single long note, played on a violin, a note as thin and sharp as a thread, like the thread that held up the bridge I was on. While that one note played, everything stopped. The bridge didn't burn, the bad guys didn't charge, no one breathed. Sometimes that violin went on too long, and my daydreams faded away. Someone would snap some papers, or the school bell would ring, or a bus would honk its horn, and the adventure would go on. Then I would look around and pretend to be with everybody else again, which meant that I'd have to start at the beginning of the story. But that was okay too. The start of the adventure was the best part anyway. I had lots of beginnings about how I could be the only one to really save Courtney. There was a sharp knock at the classroom door. It opened a crack, and I heard a voice say, "Linda?" Mrs. Tracy went into the hall for a second and then came back with a pink note. I looked again, and Courtney was reading. I didn't imagine that I was completely alone in feeling something for her. She was really too beautiful for me to be the only one. From the way Jeff acted when she was round, I half suspected that he liked her too. Sometimes he seemed to worm his way close to her in the lunch line, nudging ahead of the others in a way that looked almost natural. I tried not to worry too much about it because Jeff never actually seemed to talk to Courtney. He never talked about her with me, that's for sure. I had decided that the best thing was to never bring up the subject, even though Jeff was the only other kid I had ever talked to about much at all. He knew about the cobra. He knew about most stuff with me, but he didn't know about Courtney or my dumb little powers. No one did, and I liked it that no one did. I felt I could hold on to everything better if I never talked about it and nobody ever knew. As long as it stayed mine, it could still happen. It could. Thank you. Thank you.